Hi, Bible Art Journalers. It's been a while, and this month for our Vacaville Bible Art Journaling Collaborative meetup, I've asked the ladies that come to come with childlike faith. And I have a verse here in Matthew 18, and it says, "Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." And these are Jesus' words. And he says, "Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." So much of our faith walk has to do with understanding that God is much bigger. We're never going to completely understand him. And I think about raising my kids and asking them to do things like jump to me in a pool or trust me that I was going to catch them at the bottom of the slide, and to try those new and adventurous things and have that faith that I was a good mom or that their dad was a good dad and could be trusted. And they were adventurous and eager to try things because they truly trusted and had that faith in us. And sometimes there's much bigger things in life that we don't understand, that God just asks us to have faith in him, that he's got it covered and that he's taking care of it. And we don't really have to understand it all in order to have faith that he's working for our good. Just understanding that part of him doesn't change. And that's the childlike faith that Jesus is talking about here, I believe. For our get together this month, I thought we would go back and play with some things that we might have done as art as a child. And I have here, this is not my lunch. These are some veggies that I cut up for one of the things that we're going to do in our meetup. And that is going to be some veggie printing. Never seen on VeggieTales. We'll get to that in a second. But I also wanted to talk about the fact that I always encourage the ladies that come because a big part of my class and a big part of these videos that I do is that I want to give you things you can try and do without feeling like you have to be some incredible painter or artist or drawer. Like, we all have this ability to create using different mediums, different techniques, and some of them are very simple, but they are creation nonetheless. Do you remember a time when you drew and when you painted, when you liked what you did? And for some of us, that was all the way back in early childhood. And someone at some point criticized you, or you started criticizing yourself because you started comparing to others. And I just want to encourage you today that God wants us to keep our focus on the positive, on him, about what we're learning in the Word, and have fun with the art, even if it doesn't turn out the way you thought it should. Our comments should be things like, I'm learning something new, I'm growing, I'm stretching myself, I'm being brave, and I'm not hanging on to perfection, I'm letting that go. So those are some concepts of childlike faith and just embracing your childhood artist again that I hope you'll take to heart today. So to the activity, I have some paints that I got from Target. They're the acrylics that are just their little $2 bottles. They have some really nice colors. And then I have my plate of veggies, and I have just cut these things that are going to fall apart. I have kind of rubber banded together. I have some cabbage, and I recommend that you try to cut where the stem is and leave it intact because that'll hold it all together. But I wanted a couple different size wedges, so I went ahead and rubber banded this wedge. And then I have some peppers and some romaine hearts and celery. And so we're just going to do some stamping today in our Bible. And I've picked some verses that I've read over in the last couple days to go ahead and do the artwork on. I'm going to start with my pepper, and I've just cut the bottom off, and then I have these two different shapes, and I've got paper towels here because as soon as you cut them, they're juicy and the liquid starts coming out of them. And so I'm just going to set them on the paper towel for a second. And then I have a kind of bigger, this is not any kind of fancy brush. In fact, it's kind of looking a little worn out, but that's okay for what we're doing today. So the verse I read was from Matthew 18. So now that some of the moisture is off of these, I'm just going to take my dry brush and I'm just going to brush on lightly, sort of dab around my pepper. And I'm going straight from the paint bottle. I don't think I'm getting that much pepper juice in my paint, so should be good. Now you could probably, if you feel like you got too much paint on there, you could probably, dab it off on your paper towel first, but I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. So now the bottom that I cut off of the pepper, this one has a little more surface area. So I'm going to hit this really quick with a heat gun. I have to be honest with you that I really did kind of search around in the bins at the grocery store to pick a pepper that had a lot of indentations so that it would have sort of this flower shape. Now I'm going to use some of my paint to put some centers in my flowers. So these little ones, and I can do both sides. I'm going to let that dry and then I will come back and do some pen over, or you could leave it just like this if you like it. Let's try our celery and our romaine. Again, I'm just going to set them on this paper towel to start drying. And the only thing about these, band them and then cut them so that the surface is as flat as possible. So we can try both sides of that. And this is just the base. Again, leaving the base intact kind of holds it all together. This reminded me so much of a succulent, and so I'm going to go with greens for this one. And then this is my lettuce, and I can actually kind of pull this apart a little bit, get some definition in those leaves. So again, I'm just using the acrylic. Handmade Modern is the brand, Target brand for their craft paint. And the verse here is Matthew 19:25, probably familiar to most of us. This is where Jesus was talking about how it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, which was actually a very narrow gate into the city, than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. And the disciples were pretty astonished, and they were like, well, then who can be saved? And he says, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. For me, the idea of hoping these are kind of looking a bit like a succulent makes me think of the fact that, succulents grow in very dry, harsh soils. I was thinking about that, and along with this verse, God takes us despite our circumstance, be it, something like wealth or whatever can come along and distract us, that if we turn our heart and eyes to Him and let God work in us, then, anything's possible. And certainly there's no one beyond His reach to save. I know we all have people we're praying for who you just wonder, will they ever understand the gift they've been given, and will they ever turn their heart back to Christ? And we can just never give up hope on them, because with God everything's possible. So now I'm going to do my celery that I had banded. This is the part that was not attached to the base. This one out here. That one's kind of light. Hopefully you can see it. Okay, here's one more, not a veggie print this time, but a fruit print, and we're going to try it with this lemon. The verse here is Romans 8:18. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. A version of when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. There's always better things ahead despite what we're going through now when God is on our side. So I'm going to do a little test print with this one. So even though I stamped with the same lemon in all three places, by changing the size of the sections in the middle, I can give it a look that it's different slices. And I am not sure that there's something I could have done to have made the print stand out better. I know that using the yellow, the light color, probably made it a little harder to see the sections. I actually had this washi tape on here because the top of this page ripped at some point, but it works with the page, and so I'm going to pull it out again and go ahead and put a matching strip on the bottom. So the only thing I'll say about this craft paint, it has a bit of a rougher texture to it than the heavy body paints that we tend to use for the card scraping techniques and things in our Bibles. So here are more of the heavy body brands. These are going to be a little more expensive, but they are smoother, quick drying, and probably wouldn't have had to use the heat gun as much on these. But I just was pretty enamored with the colors, and so I thought I would give them a try during this project. So that's what I had bought, all of these different colors that I used in the video today at Target. Okay, our last one is the cabbage. I imagine you could think of other things to use. So this is my cabbage mountains. So the verse here is in Mark chapter 11, and the verse is 23 and 24. And it talks about having faith in God. Again, right in our theme with childlike faith, and that he says, "Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes what he says, it will come to pass for him." And how many mountains do we face alone in life when God really wants to be there to walk us through and move our mountains for us? So one of the, some of my cabbage is coming off. So one of the things that I've noticed is when I'm on this edge of the paper, I'm going to double stamp just because I didn't quite get in the middle. When I'm on the edge of the paper, if I lift from this direction, it pulls the page up and then it smears. So I'm trying to go out. There we go. That was better. Then I have my little one. I'm going to dry this quick and then I'm going to show you a little trick. Now you could use Post-it notes for this if you really don't want it to move. I'm just using a couple of my little scraper cards here, and I'm just going to hold them in place and make a mask. Put a little more paint on my cabbage here. So I'm going to go ahead and outline these when they dry, and then possibly paint a little watercolor behind.